This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing our future. Well, I'm Joe Pardavila, and my guest today is Sherry McAllister, the author of the new book, Adjusted Reality, Supercharge Your Whole Being for Optimal Living and Longevity. Her book draws on a deeply personal healing journey, the historic struggles of chiropractic pioneers, and decades of advocacy for whole being health. She challenges readers to move beyond symptom-focused care and embrace a more integrated, preventative approach to living and longevity. Dr. Sherry McAllister, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic, and thanks for having me today.
You're very welcome. So I want to start with this. So I feel like chiropractors have this weird relationship to society that other doctors don't have. Like, for example, you would never be like, yeah, I don't go to neurologists because I don't believe in them. Or, I don't go to pediatricians because I just don't think they're good for kids. But chiropractors, there's this world that you guys are in where, depending who you talk to, A, you're a lifesaver. I couldn't survive without my chiropractor. Or B, I don't believe in their methodologies. I don't think it works. So tell me what it's like to live in that sort of gray area of like, there is sort of like, I guess, not 100% acceptance. And I know we are dealing in this post-pandemic world where everything in medicine is questioned. So, but chiropractors have had that long before from COVID-19. So tell me about that relationship between you and patients.
Well, it's an excellent opportunity to really go back to the past. And there is a famous George Orwell quote, and it focuses really on, who controls the past controls the future in essence. And in the past, and the reason why so many people don't really fully understand or appreciate chiropractic, and I like that you use the word belief, because when I think of belief, I think of kind of a religion or a faith. This is more scientific backed. And the beauty of where we go, where a lot of our consumers really don't know what we do, is found in what I consider to be a lawsuit that actually demonstrates the impact that was had in the late 80s, where the AMA really wanted to have a control over the healthcare system, and chiropractic was kind of standing in our way. So they did a full campaign called a Contain and Eliminate, and that was essentially to ensure that chiropractic was no longer a profession. And that smeared us, unfortunately, which is why even today we have consumers that really don't understand what we do. And that leads us to this really phenomenal bipolar epic outcome that you just decided to share with everyone, is that it becomes that either I love my chiropractor, or oh yeah, no, they're really quacky. I don't know what they do. And you're right. After COVID, things really has we've changed the way people look at things since COVID. So it's questioned boldly, and I think that's a really important piece to why the moments are out there for us to look at.
That's great. And would you mind sharing like that lawsuit? Or and maybe it's more of an opinion piece, but like, why do you think the AMA did that? What was the reason behind it? Or was there just, it was one of those nefarious plots that no one really knows who was pulling the strings on it?
No, I think this is a fundamental reason why we're here in today's healthcare system like it is right now. 30 years before chiropractic became a profession, medicine became a profession. So Big Brother is 30 years older than us. And in that time frame, for funding and power, it becomes a struggle between the pill for every ill, which really becomes medicine, because that's really, when you think logistically about medicine, it is about actual medicine. It's what can I give you to alleviate the problem? And that really is the bridge that you have to walk over to the other side and then say, well, what can our bodies do naturally before we intervene with the pill for every ill? And so that lawsuit came about. It was called the AMA versus Wilkes trial. And when that happened, it was really one of the most disruptive, maybe I would even say caustic outcomes from the how we got labeled the quack. And when you think about peeling off a product label on a, let's say it's a glass jar, you always have that sticky residue that it's painful to peel off. And as soon as they paid for celebrities to talk poorly about chiropractic, and they went into the front lines to really look at how we can disparagingly end this profession where people were going in droves to us. They loved us. And then all of a sudden we become, this quackery type profession. There's no science. And you asked a really important piece of why did it happen? And I will tell you, power, money, and greed is really the fundamental roots for many things that happen where something creates a challenge. And I think power used incorrectly really does create harm and destruction. And the AMA manipulated, unfortunately, through their power and created this widespread devastation of this profession. We're still recovering. And because you said it, it's like, why do people not quote unquote believe in chiropractic? And it's because, unfortunately, that event took place, and, I'm grateful now because now we can build bridges with our medical friends, where before, if a medical doctor actually referred to a chiropractor, they could lose their license.
Wow.
I know, and no one knows these, like, small pieces of how did we get here?
Wow. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that and indulging me with that because I'm sure it's something you probably don't want to talk about every day, but I'm sure it's something, especially with the roles, the leadership roles you have, it's kind of part of your bag. So, again, I appreciate you indulging me and answer the question. So let's go back and talk about more of the personal side because in the book you write about the car accident you had and your healing journey. If and when I do these conversations, Doc, I try not to go give too much away, spoilery, but this is sort of like what starts your journey. So tell me a little bit about that a journey in terms of how that changed the course of your life.
Well, you said it right. It is a journey, but it for many doctors, it becomes, a journey that starts in the clinic, but that actually was so far from the truth for me. Mine really started on a two-stepping country dance lesson that I was going to for at the Calgary Stampede, and there was a significant car accident where the fellow behind us didn't realize that the light turned red, and we ended up heading off to the ER, and I was in my brand new cowboy boots, which, fortunately, these small things stick in your mind because, I think back is there's certain things in your life that you'll never forget, and for me, it was them coming in, not being on a gurney and then saying, "We gotta cut off your cowboy boots." You never forget those moments. But then what significantly impacted me was that I didn't understand what was wrong with me and that my life was really turned upside down because I was studying cellular molecular microbial biology, and I was
As
looking
one
into
does.
yeah, as one does, is a very easygoing path, and I really wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. I wanted to help children that had cancer. The big piece for me was I couldn't even look in the microscope because I had so bad headaches from the car accident. And then, unfortunately, as we spoke, medicine became what I thought was gonna be healing me, but I was handed something called Tylenol 3. And for many American listeners, they don't know what this is, but this was a Canadian, drug. It means Tylenol with codeine,
Oh, okay.
and that's an opiate. As this was many years back where we didn't know anything about opiates, and it was just making me sick and sick and sicker, and the more I tried to get out of helping myself after going to many, many different physicians, it became this reality now that my first choice doctor should have been my last choice doctor, and that's now how I see every day is I have stomach problems that have resulted from that car accident that wake me up, and I feel that really upset stomach, and it reminds me of why I'm on this journey every single day.
Mm. Wow. And so tell me about your chiropractic side because scientist to chiropractor doesn't seem like a crazy big jump, but it's a relatively wild jump. Tell me about that. What made you officially move into that? Was it just part of this journey we're talking about? The fact that you started learning more and more about how the body can sort of quote unquote fix itself?
Well, actually, just the opposite. I was desperate, sad, and depressed. And the medication that I thought was supposed to help me heal was really just to mask the symptoms. So there I am, sick, sad, and depressed, and wondering how am I gonna finish school when I can only look in the microscope for 15 minutes and I have to take a 10-minute break. So I'm at my wit's end, and I know a lot of your listeners are probably thinking, I've been at that place where you're just like, how am I going to get to the next day? How am I going to get through the next hour? And when you do recognize what an opiate does, it changes your brain. The opiate, they bind to receptors, kind of like you stick a key into the ignition, but it's not the right key, but it just barely turns over. So you're grinding away on your brain. So your brain actually changes. In such desperation, one of my friends came up to me and said, "Why don't you try this doctor?" And I looked at the card and I was like, I don't even know what a chiropractor is. I don't know why they didn't give me that as an option. It was never mentioned, never ever mentioned as an opportunity for me to be successful in my healthcare journey and pain. And the outcome was, I kind of think of it now as chiropractic chose me. I didn't choose chiropractic because being a scientist and seeing the research and then seeing how objective findings turn into the results, I was very skeptical. So I was your worst chiropractic patient because I didn't quote unquote, Joe, I didn't believe that
Right.
it was gonna work. I had no understanding of it and I needed you to show it to me. And I had these wicked headaches. So I have clear objective findings that I need answers to. And there it was, he showed me, it was the first time actually anyone showed me the x-rays, let alone, why the Tylenol wasn't going to cure me. It was simply just there to ease the symptoms, which was devastating at the time because I thought, this is medication. It's gonna make me better. And so at the end of the day, I got my first chiropractic adjustment, and I was so skeptical that it was gonna work. So I was not your placebo patient for sure. So I walked out of there. I got down to the parking lot, and I was like, I almost started to cry. It
Wow.
was the first time in 6 months I literally did not have a headache. And even to this day, I feel like I'm gonna cry 'cause it was a moment of, "How's that even possible? I've lived 6 months every day, every hour, just taking breaks so I can decrease the intensity of the headache, let alone the headache itself." And here I'm taking all these different pills and medication. It was just phenomenal how I walked into something so unexpectedly, and it changed my entire life.
Is there any way you can explain into words, and for a layperson like myself, what that one visit did? You're probably in there for an hour or two that, again, changed your life, changed the course of your life. But what happened there that stopped the headache? I mean, I know this may be a complicated answer, but I'm just curious. Like, it's fascinating to me. Like, you're 6 months of struggling. You're taking medications. You go into this appointment that you're kind of like feeling sketchy about, and then you walk out a different person. What happened during that time frame?
Well, it's very important first and foremost for most patients to get better, they need to stop having the fear. They need to actually, and fear standing for false evidence that appears real because it seems like it's never going to get better. So step 1 was the education because now I felt empowered that I knew, as he described to me as a lay person walking into it, is you have significant um impact to your nervous system. And I'm like, okay, what do we do there? And what happens is it becomes inflamed. And around those joints, those segmented pieces that are found around your spine, they're creating this pain signal. And now we know these words. Now I can get into the words in the book to kind of get you to understand more and more about it. But as soon as you can take away the irritation to the ligament, the inflammation that surrounds the soft tissue around the joint, and then you can restore the function. Like, now I can move my head back and forth, right? Before it's kinda like the best example I can give you that's really crass, but if you'll bear with me, is imagine you're trying to shut a door and there's a sweater caught in the hinge. Every time I looked down, I could feel it. And the muscles tightened and I felt nauseous because I'm trying to look down, but I can't look down. That restoration of just the motion itself created the ability for now everything to begin to work more appropriately. So, better blood flow, less inflammation, full range of motion. And then the chemical aspect of that, where you start decreasing all the things that cause pain, comes up. So, It's about structure that needs to be corrected, and function, which is the nervous system, to kind of come into play and actually start helping the body heal itself.
Wow. And without getting too far off course, did after that meeting you get home, did you Google how to become a chiropractor? Was it as soon as that you're like, oh, let me see what it takes to actually do this for a living?
So I absolutely love that you said that, because this was pre um even
Google?
the yeah, this is pre Google, this is pre internet.
Okay.
So now you made me feel really old.
Oh no, I'm a card carrying Gen Xer, Doc. So I get you. But I thought maybe like the internet was around because I thought it was just like I'm assuming mid 90s then, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. 1996. Pardon me, 1993 is the crux of all of this,
Okay.
is the pre-superhighway.
Okay. So what? So I'm assuming you have to then go walk over to the libraries to look it up. Was that what it was?
It's really funny because I didn't ever think I would go down this path, but let me tell you what was happening that I didn't even wanna bring up. I just thought pain was just part of everyday life. It was like, "This is what you do." I'm carrying a heavy bag to school. I'm working, 8-hour shifts after I've done 4 to 5 hours at the university. So I just thought pain was just a regular thing. So I had back pain, but I never actually brought it up to the chiropractor. Just wanted my headaches to go away. So I kept working with the chiropractor, coming back and saying, "Well, the headache's gone, but I if I could be so bold, now that you've done one thing,
Yeah.
could you maybe look at my low back? Because I've always had pain when I was sitting on the bus or I was sitting in the class, but I just thought it was normal, and lo and behold, he then said to me, "Well, sure." A few visits later, I'm strengthening, I'm stretching, I'm doing all the things that he's asked me to do, and I feel fantastic, and I'm like, "Whoa." And then one day I was leaving his office, and I was telling him I was finishing up my project, and I thought, "This really changed my life." He actually said, "You would be a really good chiropractor." And he stopped me, and that's really how it all started, was, he changed my life so much, but then he said, "I understand you wanna be helping people, you wanna be helping the children, but look what happened in your life, and the rest is history."
Wow, that's so great. That's so great. Thank you. And it's funny. I want to share my chiropractic experience because for many years, I worked in radio, and I never really. It was a very. This sounds very funny. I was an active position. Like I was always running around a studio. I was like, running across, grabbing things, pulling it. Again, I'm gonna date myself. It was like when we were playing music off cartridges. It was not. There was no music. It was like we're grabbing things off a rack. And so when I transitioned to podcasting full time, I started becoming more and more sort of like locked into a seated position, staring at a screen for essentially 8 hours a day. My body was not used to it. So I kept getting really, really like intense, like locking pains. Like I couldn't move. Like my neck would get super stiff. As a chiropractor, I'm sure you've heard these symptoms before from people that are mostly in a prone seated position. So I went to a local chiropractor, and they did the X-rays again, showed me the X-rays, and he said to me, this doesn't look so bad. We could do some treatment, but do you do like resistance training? Do you work out? And I'm like, and this is like, speaking of the pandemic, this is around the pandemic where I kind of stopped going to the gym as like many people did. And I'm like, not really. And I'm just kind of just doing this because, if you did some resistance training, this might help. So I kind of did a couple treatments. It was improving a little bit, but then I signed up to get back to the gym, and immediately all the pain went away.
Ah,
And
I
I
love
know
these stories.
and I know it's kind of not like, um, you know, a, a PSA for chiropractors, but it is a minor PSA of just like he's simply saying, yeah, there's something there, but it's not terrible. It's not like you were wearing cowboy boots and I got in a car accident. It was just like from you sitting in a seated position for too long. If you try, training, you would probably get out of it. And within a few weeks, and since then, knock on wood, I have no neck pain, even though I'm still squarely seated at a desk for 8 hours a day staring at a screen. So it just goes to show you that, you may not necessarily need to see a chiropractor on a regular basis, but just like even a checkup or a check-in is always a great introduction to that world, right, Doc?
Oh, it's so well said, and it's actually the exact reason why Adjusted Reality was born, because it's pressing questions that we have that we don't know the answers to, and then all of a sudden, we start looking at the emphasis of, "How do I optimize my health?" Or for you, it was, "Something's not right." It's not necessarily stopping activities of daily living, but I really want some lifestyle choices that will make a difference. And then I started asking, well, who's going to walk with you on that journey? What doctor has the time, the talent, and the wisdom to be able to say to you, "Joe, you're the agency of your life. You take control. You build your future. You can either walk towards a better life or you can walk away. It's a choice." Everybody gets those choices. And it's that self agency of being with a doctor of chiropractic that I think really does help you make a better choice. And then you get to begin to make consistent choices throughout your day. The big part of that, though, is he didn't train you to be dependent on a pill. He didn't train you to be dependent on, the chiropractor. He trained you to say, "Look, this is your life. You have changes that can be made, and now if you trust me and you walk on the journey, I'm gonna help you thrive." And I think that's one of the big keys to success is the doctor of the future will interest the patient in the framework. That's really what Hippocrates wanted to say is, how do I interest Joe in doing a better ability to help himself versus leaning on something or someone?
Wow, that's good. Good. Well, I'm glad I was a good example of that. I just kind of brought that up. I didn't know how you would take it when, what he said to me,
I
but
think
I'm
it's
glad.
fantastic.
Good. I'm glad to hear. And so there's a word that you use in the book, and then and so going back to the difference between like I don't want to say traditional doctors, but doctors and chiropractors again for just because of my lack of vocabulary. But you say that imagination being more powerful than knowledge. I don't hear a lot of doctors talk about imagination. It's a word that rarely comes up in a regular consultation with a doctor. Tell me about that and the idea of imagination.
Well, this is where our lives really do need to, we need to stop and actually think through the choices that we make and imagining where you could be and what you want to be. So the impetus for this is reimagining anything. It could be reimagining how do you want to show up at work, reimagining how you want to see your future and what body type you want. I want to be thin, I want to be strong, whatever it is that you want to do. But for me, it was reimagining a fractured healthcare system. And that's why I brought it up, because when you start thinking about imagination, you stop thinking about a problem and you start thinking about a solution. What if we could focus on less on quick fixes and more on prevention or optimization or lifestyle choices that really truly change our lives? And then if you do that in the imagination perspective, who could I trust to walk the journey that you talked about earlier? Who's that doctor that would be able to help me more than just surviving, but actually thriving? And I think that if you could imagine thriving and not just, "Oh, today's Monday, whatever, I have no energy, I really don't care about what's going on," but to be like, "I'm fired up and ready to go, and every day is a better day because I have better choices, and I know now, educated wise, when I'm making a bad choice," and we all make bad choices. Let's just be honest. Every day you can wake up and you can decide, "I'm gonna have a donut for breakfast," or you're going to have a protein choice, like, maybe it's quinoa or something like that. You get to choose what's gonna happen. I think that's the beauty of imagination.
Oh, that's great. That's so cool. You know, there's one thing, and I don't want this to be like a blanket endorsement for chiropractors, but I feel like the mindset between the healthcare industry, especially when it comes to doctors, and I'm not the first to coin this phrase, but healthcare is not really healthcare; it's sick care. Like they're basically just managing symptoms with the aforementioned, as you're talking about, medications. And with chiropractors, in my limited, interactions, and my wife has gone to chiropractors, it's very much this mindset of I don't again, this may sound weird, but like mind over matter. Like almost like if you put your mind in the right frame, you could handle this without be just fixing symptoms constantly. Like, oh, heartburn, take this. Oh, high blood pressure, take this. So the mindset between a doctor and a chiropractor, that's where I see the difference, I think, as an everyday person who has interactions with people like this.
It is, and it's actually you really did focus on something that I think is incredibly important, which is empowerment. Once you start to recognize that your body can heal itself given the right environment, and that sometimes environment means that you need to collaborate with another physician. And I often, in my quarter century of treating patients, often had to say, I'm gonna be able to do this, but we're gonna need your MD to do that, and we're gonna work side by side in collaboration. And as we move through the best life, it starts with the most important organ you own, which maybe many people don't really fully understand, and honestly, science still doesn't really fully understand it, and that's your brain. And what you tell your brain is what your brain will believe. And there's so many research studies out there. And I think that's where it comes down to the more you know, the better you do, because then you understand why the choices you make can impact your future. And that's it comes down to this special word, and it's neuroplasticity. It means that science tells us our brains are not fixed. They're rewiring all the time. And that's the problem with chronic pain. And there was just a release just a few days ago talking about the last 2 years we've increased the number of chronic pain patients in the United States by another few percentage points. So now we're a quarter of Americans are suffering with chronic pain. So when you think about your brain, we not only have to understand how the nervous system works to rewire it, but we have to look at that neuroplasticity, the ability for the brain to actually grow and refire. And sometimes it's like you get into a pattern of the problem is gone, but the brain's still firing on pain. And how do we start getting into that cutting edge research that challenges, what we have known from the past? And oftentimes it's the reset, which is why adjustments, what a chiropractor does, can become a massively challenging thing for that rewiring. And now the Journal of Brain is picking it up and showcasing how chiropractic impacts the brain. So we didn't have these studies 130 years ago. And most people are like, what? Really? And when I show them it's really shocking to them.
Wow. It's fun. One thing I want to pull a couple threads there. One is the fact that this chronic pain epidemic and it's obviously fueled the opioid epidemic. But is there one or two reasons why we're seeing more chronic pain? Is it just like an example of mine? Like, are more and more people just seating, seated most of the time? Are people not moving enough? Is there? Or again, I always oversimplify things, and I apologize. But like, is there a reason why we're having so many chronic pain issues? Here in the 21st century.
There is. And it starts with everyday lifestyle choices. So you being in a seated position for extended period of time leads you to functional problems because we have a very important curve in our neck. And unfortunately, it is what we call the reverse C curve. So when you're sitting, that curve really supports the muscle tissue, the blood flow, and the nervous supply. When you start challenging that curve and going into this forward head flexion, the weight of that increases. So a 10-pound head in forward flexion in extended times can what should be 10 pounds ends up being 60 pounds that you're carrying around on your shoulders. That's chronic pain patterns, and you do them every day. Then you think about your sleep. You know, sleep hygiene is something that chiropractors own. We talk about sleep hygiene, meaning what pillow are you using? What bed, what mattress are you going to sleep on? Because it's personalized care that makes a difference. And if your stomach's sleeping for 6 hours a night, you have to have your head turned one way or another for all that period of time. So one side relaxes, the other side tightens. And then you think about the stress levels that people have, the jobs that they have. Are they getting back into the gym? What choices are they making in their life that perhaps maybe amplify inflammation, such as alcohol use or drugs? These pieces, and why now? Well, we got out of a pandemic. We're still suffering with an opioid epidemic. While the numbers are coming out that we're losing less people, the numbers are astronomical. You think about losing 100 people a day. to an opioid overdose. That's shocking. And even though the numbers are getting better, they're still shockingly bad. You cannot depend on a drug long term for pain that you can't start readjusting your lifestyle to. And that's I think one of the pieces is chronic pain is something we need to address, not just physiologically, but also mentally. And then for many people out there, spiritually, how do we get into these abilities to start having faith in what we're doing and who we're putting our time, talent, and treasures into to help us get healthy. I don't want to have a simple solution. I have to take agency like you did, Joe. You had to go to the gym, you had to make some changes, and you have to physically look at what's causing my problem, because it's my problem to fix.
All right, so I want to double click on something, and it kind of ties in perfectly in how we started the conversation, talking about the friction between medicine and the healthcare and chiropractors, and you talking about when you're working with patients, you collaborate with their physician, their primary. How do those collaborations go? Because it sounded like maybe years ago they were a little more fraught and a little more tense. Are they better? Are the same? Is it case by case basis? Tell me how the day to day, like how us people, the regulars, are affected by the relationship, that strange relationship between doctors and chiropractors.
Well, first, it's definitely better because now doctors in medicine, in the various specialties, are recognizing that it is absolutely a first choice to do a drug-free option if possible. That's number one. They're recognizing that. We recognize that because of what happened with the opioid epidemic. We give a patient a drug and then we ask them to be um, okay with tightening themselves off of it. That doesn't happen when it's addictive because every brain, like Stanford University, 28% of us will take our first opiate and will be addicted on our first one. So that's shocking. So we really do have to focus on non-pharmacological options and then really helping the medical providers understand the science behind what we do and why we do it. So it's taking and educating and a whole new era of doctors, and it's better because even in the VA, they never had chiropractic 20 plus years ago.
Wow.
And now we have over 200 satellite facilities that integrate chiropractic into the treatment care program. So if you're going to get, and many neurosurgeons would say, before I operate, I want you to do chiropractic first. And that's why I think the collaborations are growing. And I also think that if the doctor doesn't give you more than one option, I would search out another doctor because options are a slice of life and it makes us grow. And what doesn't grow dies. And you need to have options ready and able, and also know the adverse events of those options. Some people go into back surgery and think as soon as I'm out, I'm going to be fully fixed. That's not actually going to be in reality. A lot of times you're not going to be the same person you were before. You're going to have to adapt. That's one piece of it. So getting down and understanding and questioning everything boldly is a beautiful place to be. And I started this thinking boldly and then trying to get the science behind what do we do and why do we do it. And it's critical now that all doctors recognize that we want to help our patients the best we can. How do I collaborate and ensure the patient gets what the patient needs? And that's why we call it patient-centric care and helping them choose what's going to be best for them.
That's great. Good. That's good news too. I'm glad to hear that transition has happened. All right. A couple last things. You write about the foundational 7 pillars. You outline that in the book. We don't have time to get through all of them because I want people to read about it. But there's one that I didn't even know was a word, but revitalizement. If I didn't say it right, tell me how to pronounce that correctly and what it means and how it's part of the 7 pillars.
I love this word because it breaks into revitalizement. How do you revitalize your own life? How do you look at what contentment means for you? And this is like we're all different. We're all fingerprints walking around. We're very different people. What makes me happy may not make you happy. But one of the last chapters is looking at your career, many of us become the 9 to 5, stamp the card, I'm out. We lose ourselves in the choices that we're making and we're not passionate anymore. And that last chapter really focuses on revitalizement is for me, and I explain this in the book. For me, chiropractic was like lightning, and it was the choice that I made. It was bright and it was passionate. It was what I wanted to do with my life. I really wanted to help people. I really wanted to live a lifestyle. This is not a profession that you can turn on and off. This is, if you're a chiropractor, you're literally living the lifestyle of chiropractic. And that's separate and distinct from many other professions because you typically don't live a lifestyle of being a construction person. It's like you get to the job site, you punch your card, you're in, you're going to construct something. I saw that like thunder to a career for me, which was in a career, you're walking into an environment and, you're looking for the next pay raise, but you're not totally turned on by it. It's kind of numbing you out. And I want people in the last chapter to really look at their lives. Is it lightning? Are you on fire? Are you passionate? Do you wake up and think, what can I create? We talked about, reimagining. What would that look like if you could reimagine your life and every day you wake up and you have what you want and you're helping to make a better life for your friends or your family or something like that? That's that last chapter. And I think for me, being able to talk to the youth of today that are looking for a passionate lifestyle that helps people be better, do better, and have better is chiropractic. And I wanted people to know there's not a day goes by that I regret becoming a chiropractor, not a single day. And to me, that's how I found my way, which is why I think chiropractic chose me. I didn't choose chiropractic. I didn't go down the road looking to be a chiropractor. It became that understanding of what could life be like if we had lifestyle choices that made us better and we knew what choices those would be.
Wow, that's great. All right, one last, maybe a silly question, but you've been sport this whole time. So, if someone says, "All right, I have like an issue," I can go to a physical therapist or I go to a chiropractor. What's the difference? And obviously, I know they're two different jobs, and I know they're different accreditations. But like, what is the actual difference between those two occupations?
Well, it's really beautiful because I have a friend who's setting up a lot of the healthcare clinics in like Facebook and Google and LinkedIn. And I even asked him this question, how do your physical therapists and your chiropractors get along? And the answer was beautifully. And I said, "Well, how does that work?" And they said, "Well, first and foremost, it's about the patient. So if a patient has a preference between a chiropractor or a physical therapist in the evolution of this healthcare clinic, then they get to choose that first. So first is your personal preference. That has to be first and foremost. But then if you want to break it down, oftentimes we do overlap in what we do, but I like to think of the adjustment is where chiropractic does differ from many other professions. The chiropractic adjustment is being able to find where structure and function are no longer balanced. So oftentimes, like you said, you get behind a desk and your neck is sore and you're not being able to put your chin to chest because the muscles are tight. Maybe you woke up with a crick in your neck. But again, that's muscle. What happens is the function of the joint around the muscle can be impaired. So the science shows us that an adjustment, a chiropractic adjustment, can improve the mobility of the joint, can also optimize the tissues surrounding the joint. But overall, it's really about the function. When everything works together well, it's beautiful. A lot of physical therapy, and this is a generalization, is focused on muscle and rehabilitation. But if physical therapists and chiropractors could get along, the world would be even better because many physical therapists would say, yeah, I don't really want to deal with the actual alignment portion of it. And many chiropractors would say, you know what, I don't have time to go through all of the core strengthening exercises. I'd really like you to see a physical therapist. So in my world, if they collaborate, it's brilliant. But if it came down to I need to choose one or the other, learn more about both because both have phenomenal benefits.
Oh, good, good, good. Thank you again. So again, that's such a silly question. I always worry when I ask like experts about this kind of stuff because I'm not that smart. So, Dr. Sherry, I always wrap up these conversations taking folks behind the dedication of the book. And yours is a lengthy dedication, but I want to read the first sentence, which is, this book is dedicated to the more than 672 doctors of chiropractic who chose imprisonment over compromise, refusing to plead guilty to lesser charge of practicing medicine without a license, a mere misdemeanor punishable by a modest fine. Tell me about these nearly 700 doctors of chiropractic and why you dedicated the book to them.
Well, first, I want to say thank you for asking the tough questions. They were actually very, very smart questions because a lot of people have the exact same questions you do. So I give you kudos, but the dedication was because we wouldn't have been a profession helping people on their journey, and millions of people love their chiropractors because it's a journey. It's not, here's a pill for your problem. It's, let me talk to you about this and maybe I can collaborate with a, sometimes it's mental health issues that we have to deal with, and we want to do the best we can. Medical doctors are trying to do the best they can. The only difference between where I see medicine and chiropractic is we should be trying to optimize and prevent our problems, and medicine is disease care. It's really focused on you come in, you have a problem. And when I looked back over the 600 and plus doctors of chiropractic that went to jail for what they stood for, and I think everybody should be so bold as to involve themselves in something that they absolutely are steadfast in their journey and they keep their eye on the ball. These, they could have gone to jail and just pleaded out, but we would have lost a profession if they had done that. And the best part was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients would be outside the prison walls cheering on their chiropractor in jail. And the best, even best part is the chiropractor in jail, they're lying on these really hard steel beds and laying on the floors. They were adjusting the prison guards. They were adjusting they're committing the quote unquote crime that they're in jail for, which is helping people live a better life. And I think you have to reflect on who got you here. Who was the person that made you the person you are today, Joe? Is you got to this place not by independent individuality. It's because people believed in you. Who believes in you and then lifted you up? And I want to reflect on that as a dedication of the book, to reflect that millions of people are choosing a natural, holistic health care choice, a health care choice for their bodies, for their families, to improve their lives. And we couldn't have been here had those chiropractors said, yeah, I'll pay the $5 fine and be on with it. They stood in the trench and they held their ground and they said, we're not practicing medicine. We're not doing what they do. We're not saying what they say. We're doing something different. And we're proud to give a drug-free approach to these people that are suffering. And that's why I think the dedication is so important.
Wow. Name of the book is Adjusted Reality, Supercharge Your Whole Being for Optimal Living and Longevity. She is Dr. Sherry McAllister. Sherry, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Sherry and our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.